Hey, I'm Lydia, and in this video, I am going to be sharing ResinCrete with you. It's from JDiction, and it's a new product that I've never worked with before. Now, I have used concrete and I have used resin in my crafting, but this is a whole new compound, so I'm excited to try it out. First, I'm going to take you through what comes in the kit, and then I'm going to show you how I used it to make some really cool coasters. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, make sure to tap the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my craft tutorials. Let's get into the kit. So the first thing we have is the ResinCrete itself. It's a powder that you actually mix with water, and that becomes the compound. Then there's some silicone molds. There's a coaster mold and a trinket tray mold as well. Both of those are silicone. Then there's the ResinCrete pigments, and there's 5 of these in basically primary colors plus black and green. And then some gloves and some mixing cups, wax. I'm assuming this is for sealing whatever we make, and a scoop. Then we have some, I think 120 grit sandpaper and a spatula to mix our ResinCrete with. It's a nice size kit. It comes with everything that we need to make some really cool projects. So let's get into the actual tutorial, trying it out, because this is truly unlike anything that I've ever used before. Like I said, I've used concrete and I've used resin, epoxy, and UV, and this is just something entirely new for me. I chose to make the hexagon coaster, and I wanted to make it in teal and white. Obviously, there's no teal in the kit, so I'm going to be mixing the blue and the green pigments. The trickiest part of this entire process was actually measuring out the ResinCrete to water ratio. So the ratio is 10:3, so 10 parts ResinCrete powder to 3 parts water. And on the back of the bag, it says 100 grams of ResinCrete powder to 30 grams of water. You're doing that by weight, not by volume. So I had to use my scale that I use to ship orders. And usually I don't weigh resin. I just use the measurements on the cup. So to add a little bit of anxiety to this, after I added the water to the ResinCrete powder, it was really watery, way more watery than a concrete mix would be. And I got nervous about it, because I'm okay, am I doing this right? I don't usually use grams, I use ounces. And so I was really concerned that I did something wrong. But in the end, it worked out okay. Just follow the directions on the back of the bag, stick to the ratio. So weighing things out was a little tricky for me, but it's okay. Adding the pigments, what I will say about this is the pigments are super concentrated. I was not expecting these tiny little bottles of pigment to be that concentrated, and I was very impressed with that. I wanted to make a teal, so like I said, I chose blue and green, and I started out with 1 drop, but I was sure I was going to have to use half of this bottle to make 1 coaster. But I started out with 1 drop of each color, and then I realized, wow, this is super pigmented, as you can see from the mixing I'm doing right here. And I was very, very impressed with that and very happy with that. I did end up adding more green simply because it wasn't looking teal or turquoise enough. I needed a little bit more green, but I mean, the colors are stunning and they are so rich. So in that regard, I was beyond happy with that. Now, once I got the color right, I knew I wanted to use white as well. I wanted to see what it looked like in its natural state. So I knew I was going to keep some of it white. So I went ahead and mixed half of the coaster in white and half of it in that teal, turquoise, aquamarine, whatever you want to call it, color. And after I poured it in the mold, the instructions say that it takes about half an hour until it's ready to come out of the mold, and that really was accurate. After I poured everything in, I just walked away, set my timer, and I came back and it was ready to go. It came out of the mold very easily. There was no twisting or prying or tugging or doing anything, extraordinary. It just came right out of the mold, and it was hard and just what it said it would be. I didn't have any issues with that whatsoever, and I think it came out beautifully. Now, pouring two colors in at the same time can be tricky no matter what compound you're using, but I think this, for my first pour of this, turned out pretty nice. I do love that the colors stayed true to the mixing, like they didn't fade or get too dark or anything after it cured. And the coaster is very hard and very, very smooth. And what I also observed is that it's pretty absorbent as well. I dropped some water on it after this. I didn't film that, but it absorbed the water fairly fast as well. So that's kind of an added bonus. Now, since it cured so fast, I figured I'd make a second one, not exactly matching the first, but I mean matching it in color, but not so much in the design. A really cool thing is once the ResinCrete is cured, like in your mixing cups, it just crackles and pops right out. So you can reuse your plastic cups or your silicone cups over and over again. It like turns into like a thin, almost powdery consistency on the side of your cups, and then you just, you know, scrape it out and that's it. Like, not even scrape it out, just throw out the extras in the trash and you're ready to use that cup again. So that's also a plus. This time around, I mixed up the same amount, the 100 grams of ResinCrete to 30 grams of water. And I went ahead and made the rim of the coaster white. I spilt quite a bit of it there, but that's okay. The rim of it white. And then I let that kind of cure for a little bit, not too long. And then I made the rest of the coaster teal by pouring the teal on top of the white and over the inside of the mold. And once again, it came out beautiful. I was so pleased with this one so much. Like, I prefer this one over the first one, but that's just my personal preference. I just wanted to see how it would look layering wise, and I was very pleased with the layering as well. My final thoughts on ResinCrete and this entire kit is it's amazing. Like, it really is. I feel like every crafter who works with resin and or concrete should have this in their craft arsenal. It's easy to use, it's affordable. The kit has all the essentials that you need except for water and a scale. Other than that, like, this is a fantastic thing to add to your craft. Okay, so I've gone over the pros, and now I'm gonna talk about a little bit of the cons. Number one con is it does not come with any instructions. So other than what's on the back of the bag, you don't really know how much of the pigment to use. You don't really know how much, you know, like paint or mica powders you can use per 100 grams of powder, and that's kind of like trial and error. And the second thing is the wax. Like, because it doesn't come with instructions, I have no idea how to use the wax. And so I'm assuming you just rub it on, but is there, am I supposed to put on more than one layer of it? And what does the wax really do? And so I would love some more like instruction about that. But obviously the internet exists, so I will be just Googling and trying to figure out the answer. And those really aren't that big of drawbacks. My advice is just make sure that you have a scale that will measure to the gram, and then just be ready to play around with it. If you have any questions, or you want to know more about ResinCrete, or you are using it and you want to share what you're doing with it, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more of what I'm crafting, go ahead and watch this video next.